Like any other addiction, it involves open and candid communication with your loved ones. Discussion can also come up with your family doctor to let them know that there is a form of mental illness going on here in the form of gambling addiction. From there, options can be explored. So just like any other addiction, this can involve rehab, whether it's inpatient or outpatient. It can include going to groups like Gamblers Anonymous, being involved in other peer support networks, and being connected back into society. We tend to be isolated during our addictions, and we need to be connected during our recovery. So the same thing applies for a gambling addiction. In rehab, a person can learn new techniques on how to cope with life stresses, because it's usually the stresses that are driving the addiction in the first place, as a form of escapism, for example. And so learning how to cope with life stresses takes time, and that's why a rehab is very helpful, to be checked into a rehab as an inpatient, so that a person has a safe environment to continue living their life, to feel stresses but not rely on their crutch. Things like substitution is questionable here. So for example, for somebody who likes to go to a casino, just doing online gaming, some would suggest it's less harmful this way if it does not involve real money. The other side of this coin, though, is that they're exhibiting the same kind of behaviors whether it's real money or not. It's a reward pathway that's being activated here, and I think most schools of thought would disagree with that and say it should be an all or nothing thing, meaning that if a person is going to quit, they should completely quit and not substitute one form of gambling with another. Relapse prevention is very important as well. So this is where a person learns the tools. Typically this is learned in rehab, but this can be learned outside of rehabs at self-help groups, peer support groups, Gambling Anonymous. The idea with this is to recognize behaviors that lead towards a relapse. So recognizing whether there's a stress or a reward, something that leads to the user that they want to continue gambling. Recognizing in the first place is very important, because at least they're now empowered to see what it is that's driving their use in the first place. Avoidance is important. So being away from, let's say, casinos in this situation, or people who are online gambling, to stay away from the computer or being online. Getting on a do not enter list for a casino, a lot of people do that as well. So substituting a healthy lifestyle is another factor involved with treatment of all types of addiction. And this is balancing things out, getting away from the isolationism, being connected with others, giving back to the community, volunteering, recreation, physical activity. There are many things a person can do that portends to a healthier lifestyle and getting them out of the isolation itself. So that is very important, is to have a change in the lifestyle. Typically, again, this is learned in a rehab, but this is still possible to learn on their own. But at least becoming part of a group is very helpful. Being in a group, a person can voice their concerns. This is what goes on at 12-step in other groups. But a person can raise what's going on in their life, the issues that they're fighting through or battling through. And by voicing my concerns, it helps really move the drama from it and all the emotion. And I'm able to think more clearly when I voice my concerns even if it's a room full of total strangers, it doesn't matter. By speaking about things, it helps me and helps take the edge off. I know this because I've been to many 12-step meetings myself, and find that I always felt better after going to the meeting. Sometimes I was miserable going in, but I certainly left in a much better mood when I left. It's going to take a lot of work than simply going cold turkey. Just like any other addiction, there needs to be a lifestyle modification. Quitting itself, or abstinence, is only 15% of the work, whereas another 85% of the work is changing the lifestyle. And what I mean by this is learning how to cope with the triggers. Typically it's a stress, but it could be a reward thing, where a person rewards themselves after, let's say, a hard week of work and they want to spend time at the casino. They need to learn how to undo that behavior and to substitute it with something else. I'm not saying substitution is a healthy thing to do, but on its own it's not good. But with a whole host of tools that a person learns in recovery, yes, it can be very helpful. So what I mean by that is to have some balance in life, to substitute with other recreational fun activities, entertainment, to Engage in other activities like speaking about it, being brutally open and honest about it with family members, with the close members. Also being part of a self-help group, whether it's a 12-step like Gamblers Anonymous or other peer review groups. But in this situation, a person it's helpful to their own recovery if they can speak about their problems, to speak about their triggers, to speak about anything that's going on in their life that week. Something works in these 12-step programs when a person can simply just open up without any consequences or fear of being judged and discuss with total strangers sometimes what's going on in their mind. And listening to others can also be very helpful as well in this small group. So on its own, quitting or going cold turkey on its own, it's fraught with problems because a person hasn't learned new behaviors, how to unassociate negative things with using or gambling. They need to learn how to cope with life stresses, how to discover that there's a lot more in life, that there's a lot more recreation and fun things to do aside from gambling, to learn how to have mental wellness, whether it's by cognitive therapy, like learning of the things that make me want to use, to learning how to be open and candid with other people, to balancing my lifestyle, to journaling about what's going on in my life, mindfulness, reading about addiction itself. All these things can help and improve a person's chances of an enduring and long-term recovery from gambling addiction. If you have any suggestions, questions, or comments, please leave it in the comments box below.